Poised for Exit is a show for business owners who want to achieve a successful exit based on their own terms. Your business exit will likely be the biggest financial transaction of your life, and for most, you'll have one shot at doing it right. The topics and guests we feature and the stories they share will provide valuable ideas and strategies to improve operations and grow enterprise value so you can achieve the best possible exit outcome. Now here's your host, award-winning certified exit planning advisor, Julie Keys.
Welcome, everyone, to the Poised for Exit podcast show. Today's guest is the executive director of a national organization that champions the expansion of employee ownership as a business exit strategy. If you are a business owner considering this option, you should stay with us. It's going to be great. We'll be right back.
Thinking about selling your business in the next few years? Don't wait to start planning. I've seen too many business owners wait too long and regret it. Freedom Financial Partners are financial advisors who specialize in exit planning for business owners, helping you reduce tax surprises, protect what you've built, and quantify how much you need from the sale. Their proven process helps you think beyond your business so you can move forward with clarity and confidence. The longer you wait, the fewer options you may have. Download your free financial readiness assessment today at ffpforme.com/exit. That's ffpforme.com/exit.
My name is Todd Grau, and I'm the president of the Twin Cities Exit Planning Chapter. If you're a business owner and advisor and want to learn more about the world of exit planning, you're invited to visit the Twin Cities chapter of the Exit Planning Institute. You can expect top-level education delivered by subject matter experts at every monthly meeting. Grow your network and draw from the learning that could be a game changer for your business or your practice. There's no pressure to become a member, so come and see what the buzz is all about. Our meetings are held the second Wednesday of the month, 7:30 to 9 a.m. See the show notes for more information and registration links.
This is Andy Kosamba, president of Calhoun Companies. We understand that selling your business is a big deal. Since 1908, Calhoun Companies has been confidently connecting buyers and sellers. From small family shops to large corporations, our expert brokers walk with you and guide you every step of the way, whether you're looking to retire or simply for a fresh start. If you're curious what your business could sell for, or if you're ready to start the process, head to calhouncompanies.com for a free and confidential consultation. Calhoun Companies, the confident choice for buyers and sellers.
Exiting your business is a big deal, both financially and emotionally. I'm John Marquet, Certified Exit Planning Advisor with TrustPoint. We help business owners transition smoothly on their terms. Our focus is on maximizing value, minimizing stress, and giving you confidence in what's next. Whether you're selling or passing the torch, we make the process seamless. Start planning today at trustpointinc.com. That's trustpointinc.com.
Hello, Poised for Exit listeners. We are here today with Steve Storkan, who is the executive director of the Employee Ownership Expansion Network. And it's not his first time on the show, but it's been a while. So, Steve, welcome back to Poised for Exit.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks for having me back again. It has been a little while.
Yeah, so glad to have you back. And so much has changed. We're going to get into so much today with regard to employee ownership. And it's a great topic. We haven't really covered like the gamut in a long time. So like we said before the show started that we would get into that. But I know that things have changed with EOX. Like I said, it's been a while. So maybe we could just start by sharing with our audience what your organization is actually about, and then how you got involved, and maybe a little bit about how it's evolved.
Yeah, so the Employee Ownership Expansion Network was started as an idea inside of the National Center for Employee Ownership in about 2015-16. And the idea was that if there were employee ownership centers in Ohio and Vermont and other places, but there were 7 of them at that time. And it just happened that the number of ESOPs in Ohio and Vermont happened to be one of the highest per capita in the country. But it also happened to be that that's where the state centers were. Some folks inside the National Center for Employee Ownership said, well, if we're going to create more employee-owned companies, maybe we should look at this state center concept. And so they took a few years, created a task force, looked into it. They opened the Pennsylvania Center for Employee Ownership. That went really, really well right out of the gate. And so on July 4th of 2018, EOX became its own nonprofit organization, a national nonprofit. I was hired away from the ESOP world in January 1st of 2019 to help start the organization, be their first executive director. And fast forward to today, we've gone from 8 state centers before we existed to we just opened in late 2025. We opened the North Dakota Center. for employee ownership, and we're now at 25 centers for employee ownership. So half the country now, from a state concept, has, or state by state, has a state center. And I think the latest number I saw in our impact report that's about to come out is 78% of the U.S. population lives in a state that has a state center. So I
Wow.
think a few people thought I was crazy that we could just, of course we can open all of these centers. What do you think? What do you mean I can't do this? But we've had a lot of support along the way, and it's been a great ride, and I've absolutely loved it.
That is awesome. Like, okay, so 8 centers to 25 centers in 7 years. Do you ever sleep?
Some people wonder that. Yes, I do have. I do have a very small staff. People say we're small and nimble. But the best thing I ever
Mm,
did was hired a director of operations. She's now my deputy director, and
mm.
she really helped me with that growth, allowing me to be out doing that work while not having to run the organization. And then director of marketing and fundraiser. So yeah, we're small and nimble, but we work hard.
Yeah, clearly. So let's talk a little bit about that silver tsunami that's been eluding the whole exit planning, right? Transition planning, like next act, if you will, with the sellers out there that have been kind of dragging their feet, but it's starting to come around. We are seeing some more M&A activity, I think. But from your perspective, when it comes to employee ownership, do you think that there are more sellers actually having that conversation that's part of transition planning?
I have to believe so, and it might just be the position that I'm in the past 7 years of actually doing the work of outreach and education more than I did when I was back in Minneapolis, specifically working on current ESOPs. But I do believe that there is a movement that has been started. I feel like we're doing less and less employee ownership 101 when we meet with a business owner. And so
Mm,
I really believe that for many different reasons, the employee ownership movement has taken hold, and business owners are now hearing about it and coming to us with a lot more information than they were in the past. I think some of that has to do with organizations like ours and others that are really focusing on that outreach and education. When I took this job in 2019, the two things I was told was that employee ownership wasn't growing for two reasons. One was the lack of outreach and education, and the other was lack of access to capital. I think both
mm.
of those situations are better suited now, 7, 8 years later. Impact investors have come into this space. It hasn't taken hold. We're getting close, but new funds that are specifically investing in employee ownership are now hitting the surface. We see, I can think of 4 of them that I'm going to be talking to here in a week, having them do a presentation for us that have all popped up in the last 2 years. And so impact investors, those that want to do good with other people's money, are actually lending that money or, investing those monies, those funds into employee ownership funds. And what that does is it allows a business owner who was really interested in employee ownership and interested in leaving their legacy, but didn't like the fact that they had to fund most of that transaction with seller notes. That's
Right.
no longer the case. And so
Oh,
I
wow.
think between the outreach and education and the change in the lack of access to capital, I think both of those, along with some legislation too, don't get me wrong, we've seen a lot of states that are now adopting legislation that may have started in Iowa or Colorado. So all of these things are coming together, and I
Mm.
really feel like we were starting to have our day in the sun, and it's so fun to see.
Wow, that's fantastic. Impact investing in an employee ownership fund. So maybe could you just like quickly explain what that looks like so that because that's probably new for some of our listeners. We have a lot of advisors and a lot of business owners that listen to this show all over the country, and this could be something for them, that okay, could add to their resources.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. Two gentlemen here in Washington, D.C. approached me early in 2009. They went to school together at Morehouse College. They went to Wall Street and did their thing, and then they came back and they found this employee ownership thing, as they called it. And what they found was that businesses that were of the size on the smaller end of being an ESOP, many of them were employing workers of color. And they really wanted to figure out, how do I get these business owners who probably have every dollar they've ever made invested in a small landscaping business or an HVAC company, who has, these employees who would love to be owners. How do I get them the capital in order to be able to walk away from this transaction without having to do seller financing? So they had this crazy idea. They went to the market. They raised $65 million in their first fund that came
Oh my
from
gosh.
foundation and individual investors. I think I know the 65 million has been deployed now. I believe it's 7 transactions. I could be wrong, but it's or 8 transactions. And that's exactly what they did. Their first transaction was a small landscaping company. I'm talking like 80 people in Texas. The selling shareholder did not want to sell to a third party. His wife came out of COVID and finally told him, look, you have to sell. I know you think you're an absentee owner. You're not. You're in this business every single day, even though you're not in the office. And he ran into this fund called Apis and Heritage. They funded 100% of the transaction between senior debt and then their fund. And the selling shareholder was able to walk away, and it's now a 100% employee-owned company. And, the stats on what that company is doing as far as new contracts and profitability is, through the roof from where it was 4 years ago when they did this. So they've done 6 others of those transactions. And those are the types of funds that are popping up that are doing something similar. Each fund has its own flavor. I ran into one the other day that wants to focus on the food and beverage and ag area.
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah, so
Uh-huh.
these are instead of a selling shareholder having to fund it 70 or 80% of this with their own financing,
Yeah.
they're able to step away if they want to. Without
Do
that
you think
financing, someone else steps into their shoes as the seller finance.
Yeah, right. And I agree. I think that the risk of having that hanging out there is one of the deterrents. And you published some research recently too, so I want to go there next, and then we'll come back to like maybe discussing some of the forms of employee ownership, because ESOP's not the only one, as we know. But let's talk about that the research that you've done, the success of employee ownership over the last 16 years. What are some of the findings, and then what were some of the surprises?
Yeah, I started into this research thinking that someone must have done this before. We talk about the wealth that's generated inside of employee-owned companies and specifically in ESOPs in the retirement plan. And I found that no one had actually gone back and looked at the records. We have records every year. An ESOP has to file a tax return called the Form 5500. That is public information. You can go find every company that has an ESOP or any retirement plan. You can find out the assets and the activity. So I worked with a co-researcher. His name is Aaron Dean from Dean Analytics. He's a data analyst wizard. And we looked at about 100,000 records from 2009 to 2024, 100,000 tax returns. We
Hmm.
collated them all together in a dashboard. And what we found was that from 2009 to 2024, ESOPs had distributed $138 billion in payments to former employees, whether they be terminated for any reason, retirees, but employees that had left the company had received $138 billion in assets. And that number blew me away. I don't know what I was expecting. I compared it to the Social Security payments for retirees during those same years. And it's about 1.5, almost 2% of Social Security retirement. So at $10 trillion, we were at about 1.5% of Social Security payments during those years. Again, I didn't know what to expect. I just know that
Wow,
138 billion sounds like an amazing number.
that is an
And
amazing number.
the other thing that I found, and one of the reasons I went down this path was I heard a CEO say to me, I'm tired of people saying that an ESOP is a retirement plan only, and that young people today don't care about their retirement plan. So why would ESOPs help us with retention? And
Yes.
his story was, I can hire an employee, and if they stick around for 5, 6, 7 years, I produced wealth for them inside of this ESOP that they would have never gotten. And he told the story of a young guy who, paid off his student debt for his MBA and then went out and started his own consulting business with the, $40,000 distribution he got from his ESOP. Now, would he have been better off saving the 40 million or 40,000 for retirement and letting it grow? Of course he would, but that wasn't
Yeah.
his situation. And so
Sure.
what I found was that sometimes ESOPs are purchased by outside companies when they're very successful. And when that happens, those ESOPs actually go away. So you have a company that comes in, buys 100% of a company that's employee owned as through an ESOP. That stock gets bought, the employees receive a cash payout. And so if we think about it as not a retirement plan, but in those situations, um, of that 138 billion, almost 30 billion of that was in today's dollars of terminated ESOPs. People who were still working received wealth from being an owner in a company that was repurchased. And so I just was so amazed, and I want to continue to do more research because I had all these case studies of different companies. They're still, they still exist even though they got bought. So there's massive wealth that's being generated through these ESOPs and other employee-owned companies.
Well, a lot of that content is going to land in the book that you're going to write,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
We were talking about that before the show. And I love the idea, sharing all of those good success stories and all those statistics, because, there's a lot of people out there that still have misconceptions about what employee ownership is, what it can do. Sellers asking, is this really a viable option for me? And maybe we could talk about that. Let's talk about what some of the primary criteria are as a viable option. And then what would prompt me to seek further advice? I'm a seller. I'm thinking about it. Not just ESOP, maybe we could go into the different forms, right? So we can do that after. You can kind of explain maybe overarching, and then maybe go into a little bit about the forms of it. And then what should I do next?
From a should I be thinking about employee ownership? I think there's two things that always stick out at me from a business owner's standpoint where I know it's a good fit within 5 minutes of talking to a business owner who wants to know more. And that is, one, do they need flexibility in their exit? Two, are they concerned about leaving a legacy, leaving good jobs local, rewarding people who have been with them? Like, this is their baby. Maybe it was their grandfather, their grandmother who started, their dad, their mom, but this has been a business that's been their entire life. It's almost like a child. How much do they really care about what happens to it afterwards? If they need flexibility and they really care, employee ownership should really be put high on their list just to determine whether or not it fits. Maybe it doesn't fit from a financial standpoint because they need more money up front. But again, we talked about that capital stack. So I think those are the two things that really jump out at me. If you want either one of those in your exit, employee ownership is definitely something you should look at. The other part is I continually forget, because of the silver tsunami, there's almost 3 million baby boomer business owners exiting, and you're, in the exit planning career in the field. But, before exit planning, before this silver tsunami was coined, we were selling ESOPs as a viable solution for business growth. So any business owner who wants to give the keys to their employees, even a small amount, 20-30%, should be thinking about what that could do. But we do focus on the exit planning because it is such the low-hanging fruit. As far as what the different types are, we promote 4 different forms: ESOPs, or employee stock ownership plans, worker cooperatives, employee ownership trusts, and then direct share ownership, whether that be a management buyout, or there are certain forms where we have partnered with a group called Tandem that has this new form where you can almost do profit sharing or bonuses, and employees can buy it over a long term. But what I tell everybody is, if you have a company that has 4 or 5 employees and you're profitable and you can cash flow future payments to buy the business, because all forms of employee ownership are using future cash flow of the business to pay somebody back.
Yeah.
Whether that's a bank, whether that's the selling shareholder, whether it's this new capital funds, we're using future profits to buy the stock of the business owner in some manner. There's no one walking in that says, I want to be the new owner and I have a check. It's the future profitability. So if you have a profitable business with more than 4 or 5 employees, you're good. And, I think the one that people want to know about the most is ESOPs. I always tell people the line in the sand is different for everybody. My line in the sand is, if you have 20 employees or more and around 750,000 of net profits or EBITDA, that's, someone will challenge me on that and say, it could be 15 in a million, but right around that area. What it really comes down to is, how many employees do you have? If you're thinking about the employee version of it, or the employee number, how many employees do you have versus the value of your company? A small business that might be selling a purchase price of $3, $4, $5 million, a 20-person ESOP probably could work. But you can't do a 20-person ESOP for a company that's, 30, $40 million. There's just not enough cash flow there to give to the employees to buy the stock. So those are a few things that I, just general ideas on employee ownership.
Excellent. Now, so the different forms that you just discussed, they are all candidates for the impact investing that you talked about earlier, right?
Yes, in fact,
Okay.
impact investing seems to be coming in. Even some of the impact investing funds are coming in on the lower end, and the worker cooperatives, employee ownership trusts, which are usually used for smaller businesses. We're seeing more
Right.
growth there. Some of the CDFIs, the community development financial institutions, or some people think of them as almost a credit union, banks that are really interested in helping those small businesses and have a different charter. They're really coming into that worker cooperative space. So yeah, it's all across the board. And then there are some funds like Apis and Heritage and Elevate and Monarch that are looking directly at ESOP. So It's been a really good fun time. I know it's to use the word fun a couple different times, but it has been fun to see the growth
And you're
in those
out
funds.
there. Yeah, I know you're doing a lot of speaking, so different organizations that bring you in to talk about this topic. So maybe just give us a quick overview of primary speaking engagement candidate, because I know you want to do more of that, and we have a lot of listeners from all over the place, and maybe they'd want to bring you in to talk about this.
I appreciate that. So when I took this job, I heard that there were 3 million baby boomer business owners. That was our audience. And I thought, well, that's an amazing audience. Let's go. I mean, who wouldn't want to have an audience like that? As you know, business owners do not come out of the woodwork to tell people that they're going to sell their business, no matter how old they are.
Yeah.
It's some trusted advisor that they finally tell after they finally
Mm-hmm.
have some sort of health scare. Something happens where they finally admit, yes, I need to sell. And so we have to go
Mm-hmm.
find them through third parties. So trade associations, economic developers, financial advisors, CPA firms, anybody who might be a trusted advisor or a business owner is who we speak through. And the way we do this is we don't explain the nuances of an ESOP or worker cooperative. We bring business owners who have done the transactions, who have thought about this and said, 8 years ago, I was thinking about exiting my business. The story that I told about the landscaping firm. We have one or two of them on stage, sit down in a big comfy chair, do a fireside chat, and really just listen to their story and the
Mm-hmm.
connection that that's made. Hopefully there's business owners in the audience for trade associations. I mean, I'd love to do more of those where the business owners are actually in the audience, but even if it's a trusted
Mm-hmm.
advisor, that story just resonates with the audience, and we get more calls and more connections from after those fireside chats than in any sort of technical. Because I used to do this for a living for 23 years in Minneapolis, and it was all about the technical side, sitting in front of a business owner telling them how an ESOP share allocation worked. And I now realize how faulty that was. They want to hear the stories.
Yeah, I think that's how all of us, like, that's how we're wired, right? As human beings, that hearing situations that resonate with us, and it's more memorable that way, and we can relate to it. Maybe we could just spend a little bit of time talking about primary benefits and maybe a couple of the pitfalls.
Yeah, so I think we talked a little bit about primary benefits. The flexibility is one that I didn't dive into, but for a business
Mm-hmm.
owner, the flexibility in exiting is so crucial. You can sell to a third party and you can get a check for most of the business. You might have an earnout or something, and you can go on your way. And that might be the way that business owners want to. Nothing wrong with that. But if there's some thought that you want some flexibility, maybe you're not exactly ready to go. Maybe you don't have a management team that is perfectly ready, but you want to start that transition. Maybe you're not done working. Like if there's some sort of reason that you want to stick around or you want to have flexibility in how those dollars are taken in, employee ownership really has a primary benefit. And that's beyond the other stuff that we talked about, which was worker wealth, leaving good jobs local. And then the one that I never lead with, but is certainly has to be talked about, and that is post transaction. If you are an S corporation and you are to the percent that you're owned by an ESOP, that percentage, when you do the pass through of profits, those
Mm-hmm.
those profits pass through on a K1, and that K1 is given to the trustee of the ESOP, and the ESOP says, "Thank you very much. We are a tax deferred entity. We do not have to recognize that income." And so, or those profits. And so as a
Mm-hmm.
100% S Corp ESOP, the corporation no longer pays federal income tax. Those taxes are paid when the ESOP participants actually cash in their benefit rather than taking it to a rollover to a 401k or an IRA. But if they actually cash in their stock and get a cash payment, it's at that point, just like any other retirement plan distribution, that they pay taxes. So I don't lead with that, but certainly
Yeah.
many ESOPs across the country have been created because of the future profitability. And imagine what you can do if you're no longer managing your business to not pay taxes and
Uh,
paying out distributions, paying out bonuses, buying equipment that yes, you need, but maybe you wouldn't have bought that truck if it wasn't for taxes. Imagine being able to keep that money in the business and do what you really want to do with it. That
mm-hmm.
has created some amazing companies over the years. So those are the primary benefits. I think the pitfalls, no matter what the form of employee ownership is to make sure that you pay attention to the future cash flow feasibility that people do for you going into the transaction. Can this business really support the payments that need to be made to buy out the shareholders? And then if it's an ESOP, can it continue to pay people who leave who have now received stock, the employees? You don't want to saddle your future management team with this thing that they didn't really want. It was kind of a tax benefit for you, as a tax benefit for the company, but in
Mhm.
reality, you really didn't pay attention to the cash flow. Those are the kinds of ESOPs, and even on the worker cooperative EOTs, where it just comes back and bites, and then someone has to undo it. And other than
Mm.
that, I have not seen, if it's done for the right reason and the feasibility is there and paid attention to, we very rarely see these go south. Of course, you can have a business downturn where things just go bad, but that's not anything to do with the ESOP. That has to do or employee
Mhm.
ownership. That has to do with the business, just the business cycle.
Well, and I'm sure that underlying foundation for having this set up successfully out of the gate is going to be getting the right advice and making sure that you have, as a seller, as an owner, I should say, the right advisors. They're understanding everything before you actually make the decision. At least the different situations that I've seen clients in, many times it's just because they lacked all the information or the right information. They didn't have the right advisors and they thought they did. And so there's that too.
Yeah, I think the transactions that go the best are the ones where the business owner has a trusted advisor who realizes that they don't know employee ownership and they are there to be the quarterback with the business owner and bring in a team of people who have done, as many of these transactions, because it does take a team.
Exactly.
Our state centers have access to all of those local advisors who have done these, they've been vetted. But when they have that, when the business advisor can realize I am so important in this relationship, it just goes so well because they can help that business owner like they have for years. They're their trusted advisor. They're the ear. Like, I didn't
Yeah.
understand what that guy said or that lady said, that advisor
Hmm.
said. Tell me more about that. Or do you trust what they're saying? Like, just be by my side. And then when the transaction's over, be by my side in the future as well. Like, it's so
Hmm.
important to do. And we do see so many times, well, I can do this, or well, maybe we just use this advisor. They're a little bit cheaper. Well, how many transactions have they really done? What do they really know about it? So, like
Exactly.
anything that we do, right? Like, you put a new roof on my house, I want to make sure someone's done a lot of roofs.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, it's been wonderful having you back on the show, Steve. So much impact that you have made in such a short time is really, really something else. So thank you
I
for all that
appreciate
you're doing.
I
Yeah, for
appreciate you
the
having
industry.
me.
And mhm. We'll have to do this again because I'm sure, you'll have the entire country covered by the time we have you back. Your book will be written, you'll be on a speaking circuit. Maybe you won't even have time for me.
I will always have time for you.
Well, I really appreciate it. It's been fun having you. And thanks everybody for listening. Please do share this episode and talk about it with your colleagues and your clients. We really appreciate it. Steve, we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Julie.
Thanks, everybody.